All right, welcome to episode number 20 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. As always, we're brought to you by Fellowship Brand, premium men's grooming products. Go to fellowshipbrand.com or check them out on Instagram at fellowship_brand. My guest today is Dyisha Reliford. She's a corporate healthcare executive in the world of business transformation. She's an author of the Transformation Playbook, 7 winning strategies to drive sustainable change. It's a guide to help you learn and apply winning strategies in an organizational transformation. She's a results-driven leader, and she's here to share her unique perspectives on organizational transformation. Dyisha, it's a pleasure to have you.
Great to be here, Jake. Thanks for inviting me.
So you're out on the East Coast, somewhere around Philadelphia. How are things going out there toward the end of 2020? You covered in snow yet? Like, what's going on out in Philly?
Well, actually, I transitioned from Philly back to Charlotte.
Oh, you're in Charlotte.
Charlotte.
That's
so the
right.
good news is there's no snow on the ground.
Okay.
It's about 40 degrees out here, a little sun. I don't think we're going to I think it's just going to be a little cold for Christmas, but no white Christmas here in Charlotte.
All right. All right. And so let's get right into it. You know, I just finished your book this week and I've got it here in front of me. It is really, really good. And, you know, I say that from somebody who has been in the project management, process improvement, change management space, the majority of my career, and somebody who does have a consulting company where I help organizations go through, you know, transformations of various aspects. Like, I'm really interested to unpack this book. So first, maybe a little deeper background in yourself. Like, how did you get into business? How did you get into organizational transformation? How did this become something that you were so interested in that you wanted to write a book about it?
No, thanks, Jake. And I really appreciate your feedback. I mean, for me, you know, my career has been a journey. I have had passions in healthcare, education, and business throughout my entire career. So I actually started as an elementary school teacher.
Okay.
That was actually my first job. And I think when you teach second graders and fourth graders, you learn a lot about how to explain the same concept 20 different ways. That's one of the skills you really build as a teacher. But I was missing a little bit of the business and healthcare aspects of what I enjoyed. So I actually spent many years working in pharmaceutical sales, communicating, influencing, which are important skills when you're thinking through transformation. After getting my MBA, I worked for GE Healthcare and really got a huge opportunity to drive influence and change through a very matrix organization. And that's really, if I could use the phrase, I caught the bug for transformation. And I think it's a combination of having a vision and seeing it come to fruition for everyone in the organization to be successful, while also being able to leverage my influence skills, right, to make it happen. And ultimately drive impact, which is what I'm about. So that's really where I caught the bug, had the opportunity to support transformations, lead transformations there, and continue that work into some consulting as well that I did, and really felt like, you know what, this is my passion. This is what I enjoy most. And at my current company, I'm able to, you know, serve in a very similar role, supporting transformations across the company. So it's really been, I would say, this last decade that I've been solely focused on transformations, but I would say my whole career, I've really been building that skill set around communication, around influence, around what I like to call connecting the dots, which are really important skills to have if you're going to lead an organizational transformation.
So let's peel this onion back. You know, transformation, big word. Organization, big word, right? I mean, there's lots of different types of organizations, sizes, shapes, those kinds of things. And then also, you know, transformation may mean different things to other people. So like, let's level set on a definition of both of those things and maybe kind of play around with some concepts within them.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I think about transformation, it's just getting from point A to point B.
Okay.
I mean, in the simplest form, right? There's something we want to do differently. That's going to require people to be aligned around it, to work together to get it done. And typically in the organizations that I've worked in, those have been complex things, right? Challenging things where either there's been friction in the past, misalignment in the past, or it's just a big lift that requires a lot of people to come together And therefore you need that coordination, which is really what transformation helps to drive, right? I think about transformation as well. I love to use the butterfly image a lot of times. You can see that on my LinkedIn profile, because there are all these stages as well as you think about transformation. So I would say those are the two concepts for me that come to mind for transformation. And just one other thing I want to say quickly, when I wrote this book, it was really important that I wrote it for all industries and all professions. So transformation is happening in the education space, just as it is the nonprofit space, as well as for major corporations. Everyone's trying to integrate some new strategy, right? Some new way of thinking, some new culture, going from point A to point B. And that's really, from my perspective, what transformation is.
Okay. So then with that definition, and thank you for that. And I love the butterfly analogy as well, right? But like, what are some of the common issues that folks run into right off the bat when they're trying to make one of these transformations? Like, it should be easy. We're going from point A to point B. Let's just do it. Like, what's the common pitfalls that folks run into?
Yeah, so there are a couple that come to mind. And the first is the one that I believe you have to settle up front, which is having a common vision and a goal. And oftentimes you'll have many stakeholders who think they're aligned, but they're not really aligned. So they may say they want the same thing, but how are we going to measure it? And if we're not aligned on how we're going to measure it, maybe we don't exactly want the same thing. And so what I think is really important when you start talking about transformation is, number one, listening to people and what they want and finding that common ground. That is so critical. And that is the basis and foundation on which your transformation will build upon. And if you have it, and that takes a lot of work. It sounds simple, but that's really one of the hardest steps, because you have to listen. You have to come with an independent lens to really understand what's the core aspect that needs to change in order for us to get from point A to point B. Getting alignment, getting buy-in is so critical, and shaping a vision around that has focus is also critical, right? Because the other thing I see, people have a vision for what they want to go, but they want to boil the universe. You can't boil the universe and drive a transformation.
Right.
This is not going to happen. It's going to fall apart. Everyone's energy is going to go in 20 different directions. So you really have to focus people on, here's what it is, but also here's what it isn't. And here's how we're going to measure those steps. So that's the first big thing I would say, this focus on vision and common ground. The second thing is communication. Let's be honest, the way that, when we think about communication, it's not only what we say, but it's what people hear. And so oftentimes what I've seen and experienced personally as a leader of transformation, as someone who's project managed as well, is people say one thing, but people hear another. Or people think they're sharing the message to all the relevant audiences, but there are gaps. And so that communication really has to be bi-directional, and it has to be well understood. And sometimes those are tough discussions, let's be real. I mean, transformation, getting from point A to point B, you're gonna uncover some stuff. And so people have to be willing to have those real conversations. And where I see things fall apart is really around not only communication of what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we have challenges, but even communicating successes to drive the momentum forward. Are we communicating the right messages to the right audience to get them to buy in and own this transformation for themselves? So those are just a couple of things that I think are the pitfalls that people face most, but there are many things that could go right or could go wrong in a transformation.
So, and I love that. So around building a vision, kind of creating a case for change, it's a lot of just kind of like listening and becoming, I guess, maybe emotionally detached to some of the, like if you're the person who's living in the work every day and you're also being charged with then being a change leader or driving this transformation, you have to somehow zoom back out and look at it kind of very unbiased from a process or from an organizational standpoint. Seems to me, in my experience, that it's probably one of the hardest things for individuals to do day to day.
It's very
hard. Because I've been a consultant externally, and I can come in and, I don't have a dog in the fight necessarily of, what individuals are doing or how a business is running. It's just, I see what I see, I document what I see, and then I try to expand on that. How have you seen folks kind of mature in that thinking and like zooming out in order to help create a case for change or create a vision when they're ingrained in the process. Any tips there?
Absolutely. I've definitely got some tips there. The first is you have to invite data to the conversation.
Okay.
To me, data is always an independent party when it comes to transformations and building the case for change. So I like to pull data no matter what it is, right? So when I was doing a marketing transformation and we were concerned about how we were engaging with our customers, I pulled website data to say what was happening when customers were clicking around our website. Were we answering the phone? Were we getting back to them? Was it going into a black box, right? Like, what's happening? You know, so data is such a critical piece of putting the picture together. And I also find data, I like to call it the silent witness, right? Like, it's hard to dispute hardcore data. And that can be quantitative, but also qualitative data. So from a qualitative perspective, for example, I would encourage everyone to do surveys. Surveys that are professionally done, right, with the right scales that would take out any biases, et cetera. But if you get data from your key stakeholders in the form of surveys, you can start to understand a broader picture from multiple perspectives. And that's really what's most important when you're leading a transformation. And if you're so ingrained, sometimes not only do you have to step back, but it's so important that you include all the stakeholders that are either participating in the transformation, but also those who are impacted by the transformation. Sometimes we're a little scared to let them in on it, but they need to buy in too. And so I really think, you know, between surveys, between interviewing, I'll share one quick story. And this is where the strategy comes in around transformation. So I was working on a project between marketing and sales. And at first I thought really sales was the group that needed the most transformation, right? Because we're coming in as marketers and supporting them. But as I started to walk through the project, I realized many of the marketers were the ones thinking they had it all together, that there wasn't much that needed to change on their end. And so a strategy that I deployed is I actually had the marketers interview the salespeople. We created an interview guide so that the interviews were consistent, but I wanted those marketers to talk to the sales team so that they could hear for themselves what wasn't working. And that became a wonderful change tool because they are sitting there thinking, oh, we're just going to get this data and learn how we can help them. And in the process, I started to transform their mindset around, you know what? Maybe there are some things we as marketers can do differently now that I'm hearing that feedback firsthand. So data, quantitative and qualitative, whether you do it through surveys, whether you hire somebody to analyze large sets of data for you, whether you do these interviews, which I would definitely encourage you to do an interview guide and have people stick to it so that you can also pull all of that data together to pull out insights. But those are some of the things that I've seen be most successful. If you are buried too deep, and in all the major transformations I've done, there's always been a third party, whether it's a consultant, internal to the company or external to the company, or someone who comes in and helps to facilitate workshops. I do think sometimes taking yourself out, not only because you may have a certain mindset towards something, but also it gives you a chance to listen. You know, listening is probably the other pitfall that happens a lot in transformation. We don't listen enough to each other. And so sometimes as a leader, if you can sit back and allow someone else to facilitate, you actually hear what's going on and maybe get some ideas in terms of what else can change. So I'll pause there. I feel like I've been talking for a while. You know, I get going, Jake. You got to watch out for me. But
you know what, Dyisha, I'm still, as you're, putting some information out there. It's great information, by the way. I'm sitting there going, I don't know how often I've ever seen a marketer sit down with the salesperson instead of having like this third party, like you were talking, like a consulting firm that's playing the telephone game. Like, hey, I went down, I talked to marketing. This is what marketing said. This is kind of how the information's distilled. Instead, it's like, here's some questions to ask. And, why don't you go do your own arbitration? Why don't you go facilitate this conversation and listen and hear what they have to say and just take notes and then think about what that means to you. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the experience you just had. And as far as creating a case for change or getting into like a shared vision or a burning platform for a need, I can't think of a better way to do that. And I don't think that's done very much in business. I think we rely on BAs or project managers or consultants a lot of times to just ask those questions. that's sticking with me right away.
Yeah, no, that's part of the, there's an art and there's a science, right? And so I think, and my focus is really on sustainable change. If you're trying to drive sustainable change, it's all about changing mindsets and behaviors. And that starts with all of your stakeholders thinking, you know what, there might be something else I need to do differently. I don't think I've ever been a part of a transformation where everyone didn't need to change something. And sometimes them hearing it firsthand is just another strategy that you can use to set the table, to allow them to start saying, okay.
Yeah.
There is something here. I wasn't all the way bought in, but based on what my salespeople are telling me now, based on the questions I was given to ask them, okay, what can I do differently, right? So you at least, like you said, start to create that case for change, which we also wrote a chapter on. But I think that is so important to open minds and hearts to change before you can actually execute anything. And sometimes we just try to push something through like a big truck.
Yeah.
And you just can't force people to change.
Yeah. And so, segueing maybe smoothly here to the idea of quick wins, which I thought was, it's kind of the middle part of the book there. And, you're really talking about reaping the benefits of a fast start and getting teams to win together so that they can build a winning culture, so that they can continue to build out like these larger transformations, just turning that big ship. And so maybe touch on that a little bit more. I love the idea of quick wins and communications, like the following chapter. Like I said, this is a very linear, very, easy to understand process, but I thought it was just really well written, really well done in this space.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And I try to write it linear, even though we know transformations aren't linear. So trying to piece it together to really help anybody who's thinking about getting a group from point A to point B.
Right.
But really, I mean, quick wins and transformations in general, what I find is it's about momentum. You, especially early on, thinking of pushing a big rock. You got to get it going. And you've got to get some momentum and some wins under your belt for a couple reasons. For the people who are invested, they start to believe it's happening. For those who are sitting on the sidelines and aren't invested, they're starting to say, wait a second, okay, something is happening. Well, maybe I misjudged the situation, or wait, I don't want to be left behind. Let me find out what's going on there. So really, it's a chance to test the ability of the team to execute, really is how I think about a quick win. So it's saying, what is something we can pilot? What is something that we can test to really understand, okay, when we all come together and we focus on this initiative, are we able to move it along and produce impact? And when people start seeing that, yes, we can create impact, yes, we can make that turn, yes, we can do something different, it makes a huge difference. And so you have to be strategic then. And I want to give away all the secrets of the book because, I am an author. I do want to buy my book. But I mean, you want to make sure that you're bringing people on board early on who are really going to bring that energy with them to help you get that quick win, and bring some other people along with them. So it is really important to spend time thinking about and scoping a project that makes sense sequentially to do within your broader transformation. So let's say you're planning to, launch a huge initiative. Well, could you pilot it in one area in terms of scoping something smaller to kind of prove out the concept, work out any kinks if there are any in terms of how people are working together, metrics you set up, new technology that you're implementing, whatever the case may be, and then help everyone move forward. If you're implementing a new diversity and inclusion initiative, is there one employee resource group that you can work with to test it, right? So it works regardless of if you're in corporate, nonprofit, or taking on a major initiative for a company. But I think that idea of let's come together, let's get something done in 3 months. Let's prove that this was more than talk. This is more than words on a paper. We're about action. We're about impact. And we can prove it, and we're going to communicate it out and say, you know what, this is just the start. Everybody, let's go. The train's moving, and more people get on board. and more people become inquisitive too and start paying attention. And for you as a leader, it starts to drive credibility for you. And that is so important in transformation. Sometimes it's about the leader. If the leader can't get it done, people are like, why do I have to get involved? But they see you leading, bringing people together, and then driving results. You get a lot of credibility, and that credibility you can leverage in other situations to bring other people on board for the transformation.
Yeah, and certainly your book does include a lot of great strategies around those detractors, some of those obstacles, inspiring teams, keeping momentum. So yeah, I'm really hoping that folks take the recommendation and go out and check out this book. It's especially if you're in an organization that's going through change. And by the way, we are in a major change as a country, as a world. Businesses are pivoting. People are having to take on new projects, to look at new industries. Like, I cannot think of a better time for folks to take a step back and flex that strategic muscle and say, how do I get from point A to point B? How do I continue to be profitable in this new world that's changing around me? And so you published this book this year, right? In 2020?
I did in August. I finally let my baby go into the universe.
And what was that? What was the experience like, writing a book? There's a lot of business books out there. It's a saturated space. It's probably an intimidating space to venture into, right? So maybe take me through that process for you.
Yeah, so, I've wanted to write a book for several years. And I'm a goal-oriented person, if that doesn't come across.
No,
And so, I was writing goals every year. Oh, I'm gonna write a book. I was reading about people who write books. I'll self-publish. It doesn't matter, right? Because for me, I felt like this is a space that I've worked in, and I just wanted to help other people. I wanted to share what I learned, and I tend to think, in a very practical way. And so I wanted to give people practical advice because I want to see other people be successful, because this is hard work. Transformations are hard. McKinsey has a study where 70% of transformations aren't sustained. So this is hard work. And so finally in 2019, I said, you know what? I need to be more than talk. I need to be action. And so I actually went to a book camp, and that's advice I would give anybody about anything. When you're struggling to do something, you're doing something new for the first time, get around people who know how to do it, right?
Right.
And I had to do that for the book. And really, it was great because it was a weekend that structured the whole process for the book. I came away 3 days not doing anything else, but focusing on the book. And I came away with a structure. I came away with part of my first draft written. And then I had to go back into the real world and kind of slug through it. So between 2019 and the middle of 2020 is really where, I finalized the book. And what was interesting to me in this journey was that it was a mindset thing again. The reason I couldn't have gotten it done sooner is because I was nervous about how people were going to judge what I think. And I was like, wow, I'm not someone that's typically known for that.
Yeah.
But I was, because this is something I'm passionate about. This is something I care about. And so if you're interested in writing a book or whatever you're interested in, right? There is that journey that you go on too. So I'm a better person as a result of writing this book, and just very excited that it's been, gotten out there, but really going to that book camp and working with a few leaders to really structure my process all the way through publishing. I've never published a book before, and it's easier than ever now. Really helped me to get this book out there.
Yeah, that's that going to the writing camp. I mean, success leaves clues, right? I mean, like if there's somebody who's workshopping around it, I mean, you're paying for speed. You're paying to close the gap in insight and really kind of streamline your process. And I love that. I haven't ever considered doing, because I aspirationally, maybe Jake will be an author one day. I don't know exactly on what yet, but like, it seems like something that I'd want to do, but I don't think I considered maybe doing a camp or like actually going and finding somebody who's been, pretty good at it once upon a time.
Yeah, for me and for anything, I had to eliminate excuses.
Yeah.
I don't know how to write a book. Okay, great. Now I'm working with people who do.
Of course.
I don't know a professional editor. Oh, no problem. They have some that I can use, right? So you start to eliminate all the excuses and you realize, you know what? I'm the only one holding me back.
Okay.
From accomplishing this goal. So let me get out of my own head And if this book just helps one person, it was worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth it. So I'm excited, and I'll admit there are days I just look at this book. I have a copy right here myself, and I'm like, I did this.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. So you released 5 months ago. What's the feedback been so far? Like, what's surprised you about this process, or like, what are you excited about going into 2021 about it?
Yeah, so the feedback has actually been great, which is exciting to me. And I think the aspect that I appreciate the most is that I'm getting positive feedback from people in different fields, which was the goal of my book, was that it would be for all professions and all industries. So I have friends who are entrepreneurs who are saying, oh my goodness, I'm surprised, but there's a lot in here for me as an entrepreneur. I just did a podcast about a month ago talking to nonprofits about how to use these. And nonprofits are undergoing major transformation right now, given COVID and just, how they're thinking about holding their events, fundraising, et cetera. I have friends in energy say, yeah, I need this too. So that's what gets me excited, is that why I developed this book, the feedback is coming from a variety of sources that says, yes, this is helping me structure. This is helping me think through it. The book has a lot of exercises. So I called it the playbook. I'm a big sports fan. Okay. But in a playbook, right, there are many different plays. You don't have to do everything in a playbook, right? You can just go to the chapter, go to a certain section of a chapter and get what you need and go out and be successful, right? Because I'm sure many of you out there have got some of the things down, but you're struggling in a couple areas. The idea of the playbook is you can point to it and meet that need in that particular area. So for 2021, I really want to do more in terms of getting that message out there. So I'm going to amplify the social media aspect of what I'm doing. And I'm also looking into creating an e-course.
Okay.
Something a little bit more interactive for people who respond better to an interactive process versus maybe, just reading a book, which I think this book is easy to read, but I also am conscious, because I have been a teacher, that people learn in many different ways. So I'm looking forward to an e-course and hopefully some more opportunities to speak to people who are interested in this topic. Something I get a lot of energy and passion around, and love to connect with people who are also in this space.
Yeah. And, I found myself, again, as a prideful professional, one with lots of certifications behind my names and whatever. I'm reading through this, and a lot of it is like, or at least some of it to me is like, oh yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And then you go, am I doing that? Am I doing that consistently? Am I doing that every day? Am I doing it in a way that best serves the transformation? Could I shore up kind of my walls around this particular, concept, whether that be, the communications process, or like really communicating values and getting the teams and identifying the stakeholders and being strategic about it. Like, some of that falls off like in the day to day. And like, it's a great reminder for professionals that are in this space of like, this is a really great process to kind of check yourself against too. Like, are you doing the thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. Are you doing the thing? And that's what was so important. And one of the reasons I wrote this book too, because, there's a lot of course, literature out there on transformations and broad frameworks. But when, you put pen to paper, right? When you sit down and have to do it day in, day out, I didn't see as many books that really gave people the step-by-step tools, practical tips, exercises that you can go do today. Don't cost money, right? To go out and do that, or to check yourself, as you said, right? Yeah. To say, okay, my communication strategy doesn't seem to be working. What else could I be doing? And that's really what I wanted this book to do. And I'm excited because I am getting feedback from people who say, hey, yeah, I'm gonna do that Venn diagram exercise because I forgot about that. And that's something I need to do with these stakeholders because they aren't aligned right now. So that's what gets me excited, is that I really wanted people to have those practical tips that, quite honestly, I've learned that aren't rocket science, but yet they aren't consolidated in many places. And I wanted to do that to really help other people.
So Dyisha, as we're starting to wrap up here, like, where is the best place to find your book? Is it like there's the best place? Website? Is it just generally where books are available? Help us understand that.
Yeah, so right now, and like I said, I'm starting small. You can find my book on Amazon. There is an
Yeah.
ebook and a paperback. Probably in the future, I'll make sure it's in other outlets as well.
Yeah.
I may even consider trying to take it to a publisher. You
Okay.
know, I almost self-published, right? I was working with this company, so they helped me publish the book, but looking to maybe take it to broader outlets. But Amazon globally, I think it's touching everyone, and I've actually sold some internationally, which is
Awesome.
really exciting as well. So yeah, but also you can follow my website. I will be blogging more on this topic because I think it's important, and I'm living it day in, day out. And I'm of course hearing stories as well. So I want to make sure I'm also providing relevant real-time content, and my website is mytransformationplaybook.com. So you can go there for information, and then also find my book on Amazon.
Fantastic. At this time, I know that you said that you're going to be more active on social media sooner than later. Is there anywhere to find you on social today that you're established, or is that up and coming?
Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
I'm definitely on LinkedIn every day. And I'm starting to build an Instagram account around my book. So the Transformation Playbook is on Instagram as well. So if you go to my website, you'll see those ways to follow me. And those are the initial ways that I'm going to roll with. But definitely feel free to follow me personally on LinkedIn.
Well, Dyisha, it is an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. I'm an enthusiast. I love transformation. I love, business in this way. I'm a book collector of all these different concepts and frameworks. And this is certainly, definitely one of my favorite books that I'm adding to the collection. So thank you for your time. Thank you for, giving us your perspective on transformation and sharing all this great knowledge. And I'm looking forward to folks going out and checking out what you have to offer. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jake. Really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day.
Yep.